Let's see. Alice is a Catholic teenager forced to live in chastity until marriage, but then she starts a chat conversation that quickly becomes especially hot. So in case you didn't see it or left it halfway, I'll tell you about Yes God Yes. The movie begins with a girl named Alice who is at a school run by the church, where we can see a teacher who is very strict with all the students as she bothers some young girls for wearing their skirts too short. Then she runs into our protagonista per palataccio pesi apiralonisa, but she only tells him that there will soon be a mass and asks for support for it, so we can see how the girl is considered a very noble child. Shortly after, we see a man explaining topics about growth during puberty. Some students ask him about touching themselves, so the man responds that they should not do it, as they should save themselves for marriage, and if they do not, they will be eternally condemned because God is always watching them. Then we see Alice's friend, named Laura, who is very upset because she was in another class where they taught about motherhood, but she's not in a relationship with anyone, so she says they shouldn't give such silly lessons. Later, Alice is at home eating some snacks. Shortly after, she goes to her computer to answer some surveys about movies in anonymous chats. The girl is very entertained and amused with what she's doing. Then, someone in the chat sends her an email attaching some photos of a man being with a woman, which scares the girl, and she quickly switches windows as she had never seen such a thing in her life. However, we notice how she makes sure there is no one in the house and opens the email again, starting to look at the photos with curiosity. The person in the chat sends her some messages where they ask if she is touching herself. Alice doesn't know what it means, so she checks the email and sees a photo of another girl doing it. Our protagonist quickly tries it herself, discovering something she had never experienced, although her mother calls her to come eat. The next day, we see Alice getting into a car where some of her friends are. They question her if the rumors are true that she was with a guy named Wade, with whom she supposedly had relations in a sauna. Alice, surprised, quickly tells them no, and besides, she doesn't like that guy. Shortly after, in class, we see that our protagonist is actually interested in Wade. At breakfast, we see Alice with Laura. Another girl named Beth passes by and tells them that everyone knows about Alice and Wade's encounter, so our protagonist prefers to ignore such comments. Also, Beth tells her she was on a school retreat called Kerkos, where she received a medal for participating, as another girl named Nine passes by and tells Beth it's time to eat, so they go sit together at another table. Later, we see Alice run into Wade and his girlfriend named Heather, who stare at her without saying anything, as they believe she started the rumors. Our protagonist makes a noble comment about the milk, but they interpret it as something rude and leave saying she's disgusting. Then, in one of the masses, we see how the teacher doesn't want Alice to continue supporting her and instead asks Heather for help. The woman also tells the girl to respect herself and not to hang out with the boys. Alice is surprised that the rumors have gone so far, and she also notices how much Wade cares for Heather, who is also part of Kirkos, as she has the medallion. Some time passes and we see Alice going to the priest to confess, but she doesn't have the courage to tell him about what she did in front of the computer, nor about the messages and photos she saw on it. Then, while she fulfills her penance, she remembers the Kirkos retreat, so she believes it's a good idea to join to improve her life. A few days pass and we see how Alice and Laura enter the retreat, so they take a bus directly to the event. They arrive and notice a very handsome guy named Chris, who is a football star and also part of Kirkos. Then, Nina welcomes Alice since they will be in the same cabin, so she follows her. They enter their rooms and Nina tells her they cannot have watches or cell phones, but our protagonist hides the phone and only hands over the watch. The next day they gather the kids in groups, so Alice ends up with Chris, who kindly welcomes her to the team. Then, the father welcomes everyone to the event, telling them that it will be unforgettable and will help them improve as people. They are also given some sheets on which they will describe their feelings by selecting from a list. Alice selects several and notices that horny is among the options, and after thinking about it a bit, decides to select it. Alice looks around and notices she is one of the first to finish. She reflects a bit on the option she selected and decides to erase it, but the pencil eraser doesn't work properly as it doesn't manage to remove what she marked before. Then they are asked to hand in their papers, and our protagonist just marks the option and hands it to the teacher, who keeps it. Later, Alice runs into Chris at breakfast, and we notice how the girl is very intrigued by the hair on the boy's hands. Then we see Nina recount some sad anecdotes from her past. The situation becomes touching, and several of the kids go to hug her so she doesn't feel alone. At night, Alice can't sleep and decides to take her phone and play on it for a while. When it rings, it makes a very loud sound, so she puts it in vibration mode, and the girl doesn't notice how the device moves and decides to put it down there while enjoying how it makes her feel. The next day, we see the kids being taken through the forest. Alice pretends to trip just so Chris will carry her to the infirmary while she enjoys her little ride. Later, Nina enters our protagonist's room and tells her that they will soon take a group photo as some messages arrive on the cell phone, and Nina discovers the hidden device. Dagla kaka dosi. Nina tells her that she will inform her father about it, while we notice Alice becomes sad because they will take away her little toy. Later, they take the photo and some boys tease her since she keeps telling them about what she supposedly did with Wade. After the photo session, her father scolds her about the cell phone and as punishment sends her to a nun who assigns her various chores to keep the place clean. However, Alice sees a computer and secretly decides to log into the chat again and start asking about rude things she has heard but doesn't know the meaning of. Anonymous men in the chat begin to describe them in great detail, leaving the girl surprised. Shortly after, she hears the noise of someone approaching. Quickly, she turns off the screen and also presses the power button on the computer, but we notice that it doesn't turn off. Later, Alice's group gathers. Chris asks them to share a sad story that has happened to them before, so one by one they tell their anecdote. It's Alice's turn, and she wants to touch Chris, so she makes up a sad story about an imaginary dog that supposedly kicked the bucket in her house. Another girl starts crying because it really happened to her, and the boy quickly hugs her while we notice how Alice is very envious. Shortly after, the father tells everyone that he discovered someone was on his computer as it was not shut down properly. The worst part is that he entered anonymous internet chats where they talk about many sins, so he tells him there's no way to know who it was, but still to know that God does know. Then the father talks privately with each of the young people, and when it's Alice's turn, he mentions the suggestive option on the list. The girl doesn't know what to say while the man pressures her to be honest about her feelings. He also mentions that he knows what she did with Wade, but the girl denies everything. Even so, the priest tells her that for Kirkos to help her, she has to be honest and not commit more sins. Later, we see Wade asking Alice for explanations about the rumors she supposedly created, but the girl denies it and asks him to please deny that lie so that everyone knows the truth, although the guy does not seem interested in helping her. However, the father arrives and interrupts them as he has things to discuss with Wade and takes him away, while Alice notices that the boy left a bracelet behind which has his girlfriend Heather's name on it. After a while, we see Alice mopping the floor when she notices through the window how Nina is secretly kissing a guy, and not just that, they're doing other things which turn on our protagonist, and she starts touching herself with the mop, but then the nun arrives and the girl leaves the place. In another scene, now we see Alice talking to Laura about what she saw, but Laura doesn't believe her and says she's ashamed to be her friend because she's a liar and did bad thing with Wade. Later, while cleaning the sink, she sees the computer and places the bracelet that says Heather under the keyboard to incriminate Wade, but hears the father approaching, so she hides. Then she sees how the father puts adult videos on his computer and starts touching himself, so the girl cannot believe it while she stays quiet so as not to be discovered. Shortly after, Alice manages to leave the house, runs into Chris and starts kissing him because she is very turned on, but the boy gets scared and runs away. What night, the father and the others are singing a nice song while Alice decides to leave since she knows that many do bad things but continue their lives as if nothing happened. Because of this, she enters the cantina where she orders a drink while another woman starts talking to her, saying that she was once like her, fearful and believed she would go to hell for everything. We notice how they open up to each other, making the girl feel more at ease. On the next day, Alice is at breakfast when she sees Laura with Nina and other girl, so she sits at a table where there is only another young woman who always eats alone at the same Akpista Ata Dezima
dan detian to timpo sampai. At the same time, he notices the father taking Wade away because he found the bracelet that was on the computer. Later, the father encourages them to come forward and say something sincerely. Alice stands in front of everyone and says that people create rumors that hurt others, but everyone should learn to manage their secrets well and not judge others, as everyone hides things. Afterwards, we see how they are going back home after finishing their retreat. A few days pass and the girl confesses to the priest again, letting him know that she saw what he did that day in front of his computer, so she asks if God will punish her for seeing that. The priest tells her that it's between God and her and, embarrassed, gives her her penance. Later, we see the girl arriving home more at ease. She puts on a movie on the TV and starts doing her own thing. Then she sees a vibrating massager and gets the idea to be mischievous with it, since now she can keep her secret without as much guilt. End. If you like the video, please leave me a like and subscribe to continue receiving comedy movie summaries that will make you laugh. Take care. See you later.